NPA has asked the Hawks to reopen an investigation and investigate the controversial rental deal involving their political boss, Police Minister Bheki Cele, more than 10 years ago. It's alleged that Cele attempted to rent a building in Pretoria that would serve as new police headquarters. Then Public Protector Thuli Madonsela, established that the contract had not followed procedures and recommended that Cele be investigated with a view of pressing criminal charges. Well, the NPA's call comes amid claims of links of Gen Fanie Masemola to a multi-million rand tender scandal. Joining us now to share their thoughts on this, Ian Cameron, Director of Community Safety at Action Society, a man who's been vocal about calling for Minister Bheki Cele to be sacked. Independent Policing Union of South Africa General Secretary Mpho Kwinika was also raised some concerns and challenges around top leadership of the police. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here on In Focus. So the Hawks possibly looking at investigating Minister Bheki Cele, but what we do know also is that crime intelligence boss, Major General Philani Lushaba, recently was in the news about lying about a robbery that took place at his house. We also know that there are reports around Gen Fanie Masemola, the former National Police Commissioner, the current KZN police boss, who are also said to be under investigation by the NPA, the ID around this bulletproof vest scandal. When you look at all these things, talk to me about what are the dynamics that are shaping this degree of misconduct at the high echelons of the police in South Africa. Mpho, let's begin with you.
Good evening. Look, when we came post-1994, we knew that the South African police service is not going to have it easy. There was a high expectation that the police have to, produce sterling work to South Africans and even to government itself. That is why if you look at the emblem of the South African Police Service, it's an ALU, and ALU is a zero-fight plant. You know, if it doesn't find water on top, it will have to go down because of its tap roots. But you see, these challenges need not persist. These challenges must at some times come to an end. And there's 28, I think, now that we have been in this democracy, and South African Police Service was supposed to have settled down. So it's like we have started down again and we're moving up, and that is not good for South Africa, it's not good for the service, and it's not good for South Africans.
Ian, why are complaints of misconduct seemingly not abating? Maybe someone would even say maybe they are on the rise while trust in police remains weak. What are the dynamics that are shaping this level of police misconduct?
Well, I think political contamination within the South African police service is rife. I think it's the worst that it's ever been. I think political influence is a massive problem. On top of that, something that we've suggested is that we need to do some kind of a skills audit to not only determine the actual skill of senior members, specifically officers, well, we said starting with colonel and above, but to determine whether they were appointed according to merit or because of political affiliation. And if it is the latter, the necessary steps need to be taken. But we need a police service that can be objective, that isn't acting as, let's call it, an iron fist of a specific political elite. At the moment, it just seems that anything you report, especially to senior levels of SAPS, you just have no chance of it being investigated. And I think, to be fair to ground-level police members, there are thousands of really, really good members still out there on the streets doing their best with very little resources. But their leadership is incredibly poor. They are corrupt. They are known to be corrupt. And ground-level cops will tell you that they are severely frustrated because when they do their jobs to the best of their ability, they are often transferred or even victimized because they act against crime.
Yeah. You're saying there are good men there. There's top leadership that is a little bit of a challenge. How familiar are officers with the rules of conduct for the SAPS, and how supportive are they of these rules?
In my opinion, I think they are very, very aware of them, but they are not supportive enough of them. And that is why so many people, I mean, it was shown in an internal survey from last year in SAPS that more than 50% of members don't trust their colleagues. I think it was 52 or 53%. The point is just that if we don't restructure and actually replace the majority of SAP's management, nothing can really change on ground level. And to be very honest, I think that certain political figures don't want the South African Police Service to function the way it should, because they will be caught out for their corrupt and criminal misdealings.
Yeah. Mpho, I mean, are the rules strong enough? Are the statutes, the rules that prohibit police misconduct effective? Are they strong enough? And are police themselves, including the senior ones who clearly don't see anything wrong with receiving a bag with a couple of thousands for a company that is seemingly tendering for some work within the police service? I mean, one would think a senior police at that level would know that that is wrong and that is breaking the rules, and it carries particular sanctions. So how familiar are they to these rules, and how supportive are they? And are they just simply merely willing to ignore them and flout the rules?
Disciplinary regulations in the police are very strong. What worries us as the union is the implementation of these disciplinary regulations. You know, there are other, it's like animal farm, where other animals are far much better than the others. They decide whether they want to prosecute you or they decide not to, depending on how close you are to those officials. So this is the biggest challenge that we need to deal with. You can have a look at many police officers who are sitting outside the establishment. Those police officers, there are a lot of them that are within the very same establishment. Then you will wonder what kind of a disciplinary proceeding they've used to have those ones that are outside as opposed to those ones who remain within the system. So it is the application of these rules which really are a big problem within the South African Police Service.
So inconsistency in the enforcement of the rules. What does this lead to? I mean, do police expect that they will be disciplined? And you get a sense that when they break the rules, even breaking them in a serious kind of way, do they expect that they will actually either be dismissed or actually face criminal charges? Or is the expectation that maybe I'll just receive a verbal warning?
Again, it depends on who are you in front of that police officer, you know, because, you know, have a look at this. We've got senior leadership who are involved in crimes. Then there is a decision that is to be made by the one who's above them. Then this person says, okay, on this matter, there is a difference between a criminal case and a disciplinary process. So I am going to make sure that while you are still waiting for the investigations to go ahead, I will discipline you from within. And that is what is written in the statute, in our books here. But then you have got another situation which looks the same, where the senior officer says, oh no, I'm going to wait for the criminal case investigation to be finalized, then institute a disciplinary case. That is the problem. That is the inconsistency we are referring to here. So, do police officers know that when they've committed a misconduct, something is going to happen to them? Yes, they do. But it is again that issue of saying, I am very close to who? If I have done this, what will he do to me? So you will have those police officers who are to fend for themselves, who fears that if they have to do something, they are going to be dismissed from the service. You will find them just sitting and looking at things happening or playing out in front of them and not act because they are afraid to be disciplined. Then you have got others who really goes all the way out to go and do what they are supposed to be doing, but they get disciplined. You understand? So you've got one set of rules, but they are applied differently.
Yeah, and you're saying that boils down to a lack of reputable leadership that leads by example.
You know, in the police, this is a command and control environment. This environment is highly regulated. If you go to the station, you find standing orders, in each and every environment. But if you don't find leadership who are firm enough to implement those policies, the members will still come out scot-free. I'm not saying that people must, willy-nilly be taken through the process and be dismissed. But hear what the problem is, and then rule accordingly. Don't bring your feelings into this environment where you find management, because of this conflict that they have with junior police officers. Then they say, no, I'm going to find you. And then indeed, they will find you, because it's just a small thing in the police. Small thing in the police will lead you out of the service.
Let's take a break. When we continue, we'll continue with our guests here, Action Society Community Safety Director Ian Cameron and IPUSA General Secretary Mpho Kwinika. And taking your thoughts is Police Minister Bheki Cele, the right man to lead this restoration of the reputation of integrity within this African Police Service. What are your thoughts? 072-110-5584. We'll take those in a moment. Stay with us. We're back live with you tonight on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. Police Minister Bheki Cele has come under fire from various quarters, including the NPA calling on the Hawks to conduct an investigation into a rental contract that he entered into about 10 years ago. Of course, my colleague Kate Muhlahlane is speaking to one of the South African Police Service's own, who is accusing Minister Bheki Cele of being involved in all sorts of matter of issues, including the hiring of non-South Africans in the South African Police Service. Ian, what do we know about that?
I personally don't know anything. I've seen a lot of allegations about it, especially on social media. Unfortunately, we haven't received any response from the South African Police Service regarding the inquiries, the formal inquiries that Action Society sent them. So unfortunately, I haven't seen enough about it. I know there's a picture going around of a General Ntia, who is allegedly not from South Africa, but according to my knowledge, what we could find out is that she actually is from South Africa. Nevertheless, unfortunately, as I said, the police didn't answer. And to be very honest, I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. We know of hundreds of new police recruits that recently bought their way into the certain police training colleges, which obviously means that there's a lot of room for misdealings when it comes to getting into the South African Police Service.
Yeah. Are we having a challenge in terms of selecting reputable leaders in our police service? I'm talking here in terms of the top guys, right? What is, for example, behind the latest issues around General Masemola, the KZN commissioner, and also the crime intelligence boss, who is now caught in all sorts of issues here around this matter that he reported in August, a missing laptop and so on and so forth?
Yeah, it's very sad to see that someone like General Masemola has also come under fire. I think on paper he really does have the relevant experience and qualifications. The sad part about it is, and this is where your question can be answered, or I believe so, is that for many years, General Masemola served under several other corrupt commissioners. He served with them. There's no way that he could have served in such a high position in an operational role. He mostly played an operational role, and still did absolutely nothing to take on those corrupt members. In fact, he was part and parcel of that. And him now coming under fire after the president was warned about General Masemola and possible misdealings. And it is also very well known that General Masemola and Minister Bheki Cele are friends outside of work, which obviously is something that you can't stop, but it's important to take into consideration, because your integrity must be absolutely above board, and you must be held at a higher standard in a position like being a commissioner or even a police member than your average member of the public.
Yeah. Mpho, I know IPUSA has some kind of knowledge around what is happening with the crime intelligence boss. Take us into your confidence. What do you know?
Look, the members came to us and they reported the issue that they are being intimidated of investigating a senior officer, and then they set the record straight. They informed us that this is what has happened, and that the docket that has been opened is completely different from what they found out. And what we did is to try and find out whether this was true or not. And in the absence of all the answers, then we decided to say, let the South Africans know about the issue of General Bishop. And that's what we did as a union. And after these things were brought to the attention of everyone, we are happy. We are very happy to learn that the National Commissioner of Police yesterday, he has, I think, spoken to this issue. And then he said that he's waiting for the investigations to unfold. What we did not ask is which type of investigation is he waiting on? Because if it is the criminal one, then he is forced by law to institute disciplinary steps parallel or even faster than the criminal case. So that is the matter for some other time. And then when it comes to issues of General Masemola, General Mkwanazi, which is in the public space now, we are happy as well to hear that he has made a comment about it. He has made a comment to say that he's waiting for investigations. We are troubled, Comrade Tibos. We are troubled as a union that, the conduct of a person, when you have done what we call a lifestyle audit, and then you mention that this person has got a house here. It's bonded house. It's got a house in KZN. It's bonded house. It's got a house this side. It's bonded house. I think, and then thereafter you conclude, and then you say, this officer is living beyond his means. I think that is wrong. Because the bank institutions does their own profiling, the financial profiling of that individual. And then after they have found out that he can afford, buying those houses, then that person is then afforded that opportunity to buy the house. I think South Africans need to be wary about this. We need to make sure that we don't invade on people's privacies unnecessarily. Because General Masemola has been a general for quite some time. And the salary of a general is way above $1 million. And he can afford to buy anything. So if we talk about the issue of lifestyle audit, and then we start saying that this person, he cannot afford. And then you talk about credit cards. Credit cards are managed by the financial institutions. They do profiling as well. And then if they give it to you, it means you can live within your own means. We haven't seen in those reports anyone who can come out and say the source of income of this general is 2 million, but he had sourced goods outside worth 4 million rand. So he can live within his means. So we are not happy about that, but it is his duty as the National Commissioner of Police to go out there and make South Africans or take South Africans into confidence if it is true that he is living beyond his means.
Yeah. What is your undertaking on the matter of police officers who are not of South African origin, who have been roped into the force, into high positions?
Look, we as we are talking to you now, as we are talking, I'm receiving messages now from the police officers. He says, I am from Polokwane. There is a captain here who is coming from Tanzania. She can hardly speak English. She can hardly speak English or any of our languages locally. You understand? South Africa is in trouble. Then there is a person who has sent a message from Northern Cape. He says, here is a lieutenant colonel. I have attended the crime scene. This person can hardly speak local languages. He is not coming from here. So there is a perception out there that the South African Police Service is accepting a number of people into this environment. Thabo, here is the story. Regulation 45, it allows the National Commissioner of Police not to look at the requirement of a post when he has to employ certain people in certain positions. We have allowed that he may use, the law have allowed that they may use that regulation, but those people whom they employ should be from the department where the police cannot produce those kind of skills. Let me give you an example. The issue of forensic. Those people who are doing the ballistic issues there, those people cannot be produced by the South African Police Service. To get them into this environment, you have to set a new rule, a new set of principles to allow them into this environment. What the leadership of the police are doing now is to bring in, even at the level of a captain, members whom to man a department where we can produce. The police can produce people to go and man a supply chain. We can produce people in there. So that is why we find a lot of people who does not qualify, who does not come from within, coming into the system through that Regulation 45.
So does that mean, therefore, with Regulation 45 being in place and the other regulations being in place, the prevention and control mechanisms that are supposed to be in place to ensure that Regulation 45 is not abused are currently not working?
Look, they are working, but it's like we are putting a blind eye on this. We know that we're not supposed to be doing that. There's a lot of movement, what we call lateral movement of police officials and the members who are employed in terms of the Public Service Act personnel. There's a movement of people from one end to another. These things, if you raise them, the system is not there to look after you. You can see what is happening to Patricia. Patricia has to run. She has to leave her home because she kept on telling the truth. And no one is willing. And I'm not saying the minister is not willing to listen. I think he has tried to explain to South Africans this afternoon to say that I want to assist. But I think the situation is so dire to such an extent that Patricia does not believe anything that comes from anyone. And we cannot allow that to happen, because if the president says the whistleblowers must be protected, I think each and every department, and including this one, need to protect people who raise issues. People must not look at me as a Mpho and say, Mpho is arrogant. Mpho is, he does not listen. And Mpho, because of this, we will plan that this must happen to him, and Mpho ends up being outside of his employment. Yeah. We need to make sure that those people who raise issues such as these ones, they are protected by the system, and so that we encourage the other members as well to do likewise. And we will be able to get rid of these things within the South African Police Service.
Yeah, and that would bring me to my next question. How willing are police officers to report misconduct? I mean, judging by the two messages that Mpho has just read to us, clearly they are willing to report them to Labour, but I don't know if they are really willing to report them to the authorities that would need to investigate these matters.
No, definitely not. I just last week spoke to two members that used to work in parts of the Cape Flats, specifically around organized crime. And in both cases, members were transferred firstly it started with victimization. Later on, they were transferred in the name of, having to go somewhere else and doing work there. But they get transferred to places where their skill set simply cannot be used properly. The point is that if you were to do the right thing in some parts of the South African Police Service, that is when you get trampled on, and that's when those members have to often live in fear. I don't think we always realize to what extent the South African Police Service has been infiltrated by criminal networks. It is definitely a serious problem, and I know it happens on ground level, but we must not underestimate the senior level infiltration regarding criminal activities. I honestly think that many senior members are part and parcel of organized crime gangs and syndicates throughout South Africa. We've seen it recently being reported in the Western Cape,
saying they sit around the table with crime intelligence and plan alongside them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I, to be very honest, I really do believe that. I really do believe that's the case. I think in the Western Cape, it's easier to define because gangs are a very defined type of issue. You've got gangs that can be identified by the way they do things. They even tell you who they are. In the rest of the country, it might not be that easy to identify them, but I guarantee you the same problem exists in every single other province. The South African Police Service has been compromised on a senior level, and therefore it's in dire straits on ground level.
Ian Cameron and Mpho Kwinika, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on tonight here on In Focus.